Let's bring in ABC's David Kerley and ABC News contributor Colonel Steve Ganyard, a former Marine Corps fighter pilot and aviation accident investigator. Both have been on this story from the start. Thanks for joining us. I want to start with you, Steve. You look at that vast search area, and it reminds me how small the search area was for Air France. They had debris within 5 days, and then it took 2 years. But this area is so huge.
It is. The good news is, if you remember earlier in the week, we were looking at 2 million square miles. So the so-called good news is we're only down to a search area the size of the state of Texas. Now, you referenced the Air France mishap just because of the similarities. In that mishap, we're probably looking at something the size of Connecticut. So still a daunting, daunting search area.
And if we find the debris, if that is actually debris from the airplane, it doesn't mean we're going to find the airplane.
That's right. I think we ought to think of this as two separate search areas. We're looking for things that are on top of the water that still may be floating. But where the airplane went into the water, we think, is some 350 to 700 miles away. So even if we do find this debris, I don't think it's going to help us find the airplane that could be 700 miles away at the bottom of the ocean.
Because of those currents, because of the place that the plane went in. David, but if they do find debris, if they just find the debris from the airplane, can that give us any clues to
some
what
big
happened?
clues, some very large clues could come out of that, because we don't have much to go on right now. But if you pick up a piece of wreckage, you can tell whether or not there was a fire. The forensic folks can tell whether or not how this aircraft hit the water. Did it come straight nose down? Did it skip along? There are terrors and things that they can tell from this. And the debris, a lot of the debris inside the fuselage and from the aircraft will have serial numbers on it, which will prove that it came from this 777.
And remind us, if the black box is ever found, what we can learn from that.
So we have two black boxes. One is a cockpit voice recorder. It recycles every 2 hours. So this flight was so long that we may not hear, we'll hear sounds, we may not hear any voices. The flight data recorder on a newer plane like this, it's 11 years old, could have thousands of data points, at least hundreds and maybe 1,000 or more. And this is everything from what the pilots inputted into the system, what the plane was doing, how the fuel burn was going. It would be a godsend if we can find that flight data recorder.
Steve, we're entering the third week of this. We've talked to you almost every day. Today, as you sit here, what do you think brought that plane down?
There's still not enough evidence. There's really nothing that's happened in the past week that would suggest anything different in some of the theories we've been talking about for almost 2 weeks. Everybody still believes that the marginal evidence marginally suggests that there was a deliberate act by somebody in that cockpit. So beyond that, we really don't know anything more, and we need more facts, and time is running out.
You know, I was thinking, the world is really riveted by this mystery. We have all gotten on airplanes, surrendered ourselves to two strangers in a cockpit, or watched loved ones go off and do the same. Is there anything from what we haven't learned? The transponder was shut off. We haven't found the black box. Do you think there's anything that will change going forward because of this, whether we find it or not?
I think it's a matter of will. After the Air France mishap, there were some very good suggestions that the French civil authorities made to say, let's prevent this from happening again. None of them were implemented. Maybe now that we've had a second tragedy, something will happen. It's not the technology, it's there. It's just a matter of who's going to pay for it.
Thanks.
It depends on what we find.
It certainly does. Thanks to both of you. You've both been so great on this story.